Get ready to hold on to your seats as we delve into the heart-pounding tale of a gruesome bear attack that risked the life of an innocent 19-year-old girl. Imagine being in the middle of nowhere, miles away from civilization, and suddenly finding yourself face to face with one of the deadliest predators in the world. This is exactly what happened to Michele Koons when she worked at one of the Glacier National Park lodges and planned a weekend getaway camping trip with her friends. On the night of Saturday, August 12th, an electrifying bolt of lightning illuminated the skies above Glacier National Park, casting an ominous glow over the Glacier National Park. Hours earlier, young-spirited Michele and her companions had embarked on an exciting hike to Trout Lake, where they encountered a group of fellow adventurers who had warned Michele and her friends about a bear in the area. Despite the cautionary tale, the youthful explorers remained unfazed by the potential danger that lurked in the shadows. For over half a century since the park's opening, bear sightings were common in this area. However, no grizzly had ever taken the life of a human within its boundaries, but perhaps fate had other plans in store. Right after Michele and her friends set up camp, they encountered a hungry sow. They could have taken this as a sign of danger, but instead decided to set up their camp elsewhere without knowing that the worst was yet to come. A feisty, violent, 8 feet tall grizzly bear mauled Michele Koons in her sleep, ripping her body apart from limb. But would she make it out alive to narrate this traumatizing, frightening, and violent incident? Michele Koons, a bright and adventurous young woman, hails from the lush green forests of the Pacific Northwest. Born and raised in a small town near the Cascade Mountains, this 19-year-old spent much of her childhood exploring the great outdoors with her family. Her love for nature and adventure only grew as she got older, and Michele soon found herself seeking out new challenges and experiences. Little did she know that her addiction to adventure would one day put her in a face-to-face battle with a deadly grizzly bear when she was working in one of the park's lodges with her friend. She was put through the greatest challenge of all when she trekked with a group of friends through Glacier National Park. Michele and her friends camped deep in the heart of the rugged Rocky Mountains. There lies a place of stunning natural beauty shrouded in a veil of mystery and danger. They wanted to explore this hidden gem of the American West, where wild and untamed wilderness existed, home to a vast array of creatures both great and small, from feisty grizzly bears to nimble mountain goats and elusive lynx. The park is a place of wonder and harm, where the forces of nature are on full display. Ancient glaciers carve their way through towering mountains, leaving behind vast valleys and sparkling alpine lakes. The landscape is a breathtaking tapestry of jagged peaks, verdant forests, and crystal-clear rivers, all woven together in a symphony of color and light. Despite its raw and untamed dangers, Glacier National Park remains one of the most visited parks in the United States, drawing millions of visitors each year to experience its unique blend of wilderness and wonder. The park covers an area of over 1 million acres with over 700 miles of hiking trails and countless opportunities for exploration and adventure. Little did Michele and her friends know that the park is also a place of secrets and mysteries, with hidden wonders lurking around every bend in the trail. From the haunting call of a distant wolf pack to the eerie glow of the northern lights, Glacier National Park is a place of horror, where the unimaginable becomes a reality. Michele could not in her wildest imagination have foreseen what was about to happen to her, and her friends can never unsee what they saw. It was supposed to be a peaceful night in Glacier National Park, but the wilderness had other plans. Before we move on to the unexpected attack, please pause this video and show your support for this channel by subscribing and liking the video. Welcome to the family. Let's move on to the unexpected attack. The campers had just settled in for the night, exhausted after a long day of hiking. Michele Koons and her fellow campers had hiked 8 grueling miles to Trout Lake, seeking refuge in the embrace of nature. As they all sat around the campfire, cooking hot dogs and fresh fish, they had no idea that a grizzly bear was watching them from afar. Danger was just lurking beyond the trees. When it was almost 8 o'clock p.m., the campers encountered their first bear attack. A relatively small grizzly crashed their campsite in hopes to find food, and it did. While the bear feasted on the campers' fish and hot dogs, the group got their gear, sleeping bags, and decided to camp out on a nearby beach. Once they had their campfire, set up their sleeping bags, and were about to snooze off for the night, the peaceful night was shattered by a haunting growl. Suddenly, a massive grizzly bear charged into their campsite, sending them all scattering in terror. They ran as fast as they could, desperate to put as much distance between themselves and the ferocious predator as possible. When they finally felt safe enough to stop, they realized with horror that the bear had taken one of their backpacks filled with all their essential gear. Shaken but alive, they all hid in nearby trees, trying to do a quick head count. One of Michelle's friends realized that someone is missing. It was Michele. That's when they heard a blood-curdling scream from their friend. In a split second, the bear had ripped into her sleeping bag and dragged her away into the darkness. The other campers could hear her screaming and crying out in pain, helpless to save her. In a desperate attempt to protect herself, Michele had tried to fight back against the bear, but to no avail. She wasn't exactly trained to come fist to fist with the bear. Even though she tried her best to fend off the bloodthirsty grizzly bear, it had quite literally ripped her arm off. The 19-year-old was badly injured and in excruciating pain. She struggled to stay conscious as her friends called out to her, frantically trying to assess where she was, if Michele was even alive. In that moment, Michele felt absolute terror and helplessness, her life hanging in the balance as she wrestled the bear to stay alive. Michelle's friends were equally traumatized as they couldn't risk their lives to try and save her, but at the same time, they could not bear to hear Michelle's loud cries for help. "Oh my God, I'm going to die," were the last words that Michele uttered from her mouth as she gasped for air. The night was long and restless for the campers who were with Michele. They had narrowly escaped the jaws of death. They clung to the trees like frightened squirrels, their eyes peeled for any sight of the grizzly that had attacked them. But when dawn finally broke, they knew they had to make a run for it. The group of campers tried to look for Michele, but she was nowhere to be found. With pounding hearts and trembling limbs, they sprinted through the forest, their screams of terror piercing the stillness of the morning. Ranger Gildart was jolted from his slumber by the campers' frantic call for help. He and his colleague Lando wasted no time in setting out to search for Michele, but what they found was more horrifying than they could have imagined. Michelle's body lay motionless on the ground, her once vibrant spirit snuffed out by the savage bear. She was rushed to the hospital, but everyone knew there was no hope that the 19-year-old was alive. The Rangers knew what they had to do next. The grizzly that had terrorized the area around Trout Lake and Lake McDonald had to be taken down. A week before, it had chased a group of Girl Scouts and taken their food, but park management had done nothing. The Rangers were the only ones who could put an end to this menace. The search for the bear was long and grueling, but finally Landa and Gildart spotted it in the distance, standing tall and proud by the lake. It had sensed the Rangers' approach and was now advancing towards them, its eyes blazed with wild and feral light. This was no ordinary bear. It was fearless and ferocious, unafraid of human presence. Gildart and Landa knew they had to be as quick as a fox. They raised their rifles and fired, the shots ringing out through the forest. The bear fell to the ground, its reign of terror over. But there was one final piece of evidence needed to confirm what everyone already knew. The bear had killed 19-year-old Michele. A forensic expert was called in, and he sliced open the bear's stomach, and there it was, a ball of blonde hair that left no room for doubt. It was indeed the bear that had taken the life of Michele Koons. This incident, which took place 50 years ago, the night of the Grizzlies as it came to be known now, marked the park's first fatal mauling by bears. The tragic event shocked the nation and brought the National Park Service's bear management practices into sharp focus. National Park Service reports and Jack Olson's 1969 book detailed the tragedy, revealing that neglectful practices and overcrowding led to bears and humans living in dangerously close proximity. The Park Services had failed to block hiking trails where the sightings of bears were frequent, and campsites were filled with garbage and litter, which attracted animals like bears. But the summer of 1967 saw a turning point when forest fires pushed bears even closer to populated areas, making it clear that changes needed to be made. The Park Service had long known that giving food to bears and sows was unsafe, but it took the tragedies of the Night of the Grizzlies to spur a dramatic overhaul of official park policies. Warning signs, rules, and policies were implemented to prevent another tragedy like that summer. And the lessons learned from the fateful nights continue to shape the park's practices today, but is that enough? The tragic events of the Night of the Grizzlies at Glacier National Park serve as a stark reminder of the importance of responsible and proactive wildlife management. Through the mistakes of the past, Michele Koons lost her life. The memory of that fateful night continued to haunt her friends for years to come. Additionally, the incident also serves as a warning to others, a reminder of the dangers that lurk in the wilderness.